It's 1985. You're a conscript in the US Army. Your unit is attacking a small Soviet position east of Moscow. World War III has dragged on for 2 years now. 2 years of hell. The threat of being obliterated by a nuke is always on your mind, haunting you like a bad rash. The fighting lasts for days, but finally, your battle-weary unit begins the final push. You make it inside the Russian stronghold, blasting commie scum all along the way. Suddenly, you feel your muscles tighten into painful knots. Acetylcholine begins to build up in your system, causing seizures. Your heart beats out of your chest. You begin to suffocate as your muscles become paralyzed. Your dick explodes and also your balls. Okay, that actually doesn't happen. But just imagine dying this horrible death and suddenly your cock and balls explode. You just died from VX gas. VX gas, or Venomous Agent X, is a brownish oily liquid with no smell and no taste. Wait, how do they know that? It was developed in the 1950s by the British chemical company Imperial Chemical Industries, and also at the Porton Down Research Campus in England. The research into VX built off the work of Gerhard Schrader, a German scientist who discovered the sarin and tabun nerve agents in the 1930s, as well as soman and cyclosarin in the 1940s. The campus at Porton Down includes 2 British government facilities, the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory and the UK Health Security Agency. Why is the UK Health Security Agency, who's responsible for public health and keeping people healthy, located at the same facility that a highly toxic nerve agent was developed 70 years earlier? Oh. Also, nerve agents like VX work in a similar way to a type of pesticide called organophosphates. So with that information, I deem them safe to be used on our food. The British traded Grandma's recipe for the VX for information on how to build thermonuclear bombs with the US. The Chemical Weapons Convention was enacted into law in 1997 and banned the creation and the use of chemical weapons. The only countries that haven't signed it are Angola, Egypt, North Korea, and South Sudan. But we all know the US and Russia and China and Israel and any other first world country still has this shit and probably worse shit. If you put VX in a bomb and blow it up over a city, you can turn it into a gas and just hit a bunch of people with highly toxic vapor. Put that in your Juul and vape it. If you've seen The Rock with Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage, that's what's in the rockets they're trying to defuse. On March 13, 1968, the U.S. Army conducted a series of tests with VX at Dugway Proving Grounds, an Army testing site in Utah. An artillery shell with VX was fired, 160 gallons of VX was burned in a burn pit, and a jet released VX vapor over the testing site. It was later found out that there is a problem with the tank of VX that the jet was carrying, and it stayed open as the jet left the testing site airspace. So it blew VX way off from where it was intended. The next day, 6,000 sheep were found to be dead or dying, as well as some birds and rabbits. The sheep were reported to be convulsing, a symptom of VX exposure.
An F-4 Phantom jet was testing spray tanks filled with VX. A red dye was blended with the VX so Army cameras could record the test. This is their film, never before shown on television. The spray tanks were unexpectedly still releasing VX when they were jettisoned at 1,500 feet. Looking at the flight from another angle, one sees exactly what went wrong. All the VX was supposed to have dropped at 150 feet, but as the pilot began to climb out, nerve gas was still spewing forth. The Army says the VX spray went on longer than it should have because a release mechanism on the spray tanks malfunctioned. It was 5:49 p.m. There was no weather radar at the base. As the plane pulled up and away from the test grid, about 20 pounds of nerve gas got away, just 20 pounds that ultimately killed thousands of sheep. Wind gusts up to 35 miles an hour drove the nerve gas toward these mountains northeast of the test grid. Shortly after that, a cold front went through here. The wind shifted. It began to rain and snow. The runaway nerve gas dropped onto pastures where sheep were grazing. Most of them here in this valley, Skull Valley, Utah. Less than 24 hours after the test, the sheep started to get sick. One of the sheep herders said, quote, "They acted crazy in the head." About 4,000 sheep were killed outright. Another 2,000 were killed to end their suffering. It was more than a full year before the Army admitted its full responsibility, even though it paid the owner more than $500,000 in damages.
A 1970 report by Army researchers stated that there was VX found in samples of snow and grass in the area where the sheep were. There was also a chemical that was related to nerve agents found in the liver, stomach, and blood of the sheep. The report said that the amount of VX found in the samples was possibly enough to kill the sheep. This report was declassified in 1978, but the Army never released it to the public. See, this is one of those things that you hear and you're like, why did they even release that in the first place? Why didn't they just sweep it under the rug? And sometimes they want you to know, but sometimes it feels like what happened was just that it got lost in the millions of documents produced by the Army, and it just fell through the cracks, and someone wasn't paying attention and it got declassified. And the fact that it wasn't public was the same instance of someone just not really caring. Someone probably didn't even read it and it just got filed away. Multiple elderly tribal leaders in the area died around the same time as the incident, and a rancher in the area had reported to have eaten the snow around the same time the VX was dispersed, and since complained of ongoing health issues. I bet neither the tribes nor the rancher are getting any compensation. The shepherds did get compensation for their sheep though, and also the Army changed the way it tested substances and eventually banned open-air testing altogether in 1969. So if they weren't at fault, why did they compensate the shepherd? And change their protocols for open-air testing and eventually ban it? The US Army still insinuates officially that it wasn't responsible for the deaths of the sheep and anyone else injured by the VX. "19-year-old Daniel Plemons was stationed at the Chibana Ammunition Depot in Okinawa on July 8, 1969. He was stripping the paint off of some old 500-pound bombs and remarking them. The bombs weren't just explosive ordnance, they contained nerve agents. He began having trouble breathing and his vision started to get weird, so he walked outside to take a breather. As he walked back inside, the other soldiers working with him were outside of the building and were yelling for him to inject his antidote. I'm guessing they carried antidote with them at all times while working on these weapons. A week after he had been exposed, doctors checked his blood. They never showed him the results as they were deemed classified. About a year after the exposure, Plemons developed pneumonia and had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. His daughters also have severe problems with their gallbladder and liver, which he says could be because of his exposure to the mysterious nerve agent. He's tried to go to the VA to get help, but they said there's no studies on the long-term effects of nerve agents. Yeah, I'm sure. After the leak, he took part in the dumping of barrels covered in concrete about an hour sail's way from Okinawa in the middle of the ocean. Plemons thinks that these barrels contained the gear used to clean up the site where he was exposed. He doesn't know for sure what he was exposed to, but a 1970 report that was released per the Freedom of Information Act is really telling. Quote, "The report from 1970 shows there were 13 different types of nerve and mustard agent munitions, totaling almost 290,000 individual weapons. In addition, there were bulk containers of sarin, VX, and mustard agent. The weapons included 3,000 plus MC-1 bombs, each containing 100 kilograms of sarin and 13,000 landmines designed to spray 4.5 kilograms of VX agent when activated. The weapons belong to all services of the US military," unquote. So, it could have really been any of these compounds that Plemons was exposed to. Also, the fact that these motherfuckers had VX cast landmines is diabolical. This incident caused outrage amongst the inhabitants of Okinawa and it forced Nixon to initiate Operation Red Hat, which moved the nerve agents from Okinawa to Johnston Atoll in August 1971. On February 13, 2017, Kim Jong-nam, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's half-brother, died on the way to the hospital in Kuala Lumpur Airport in Malaysia. He was flying to Macau. He had lived there as well as Singapore and Malaysia since his exile from North Korea around 2003. He advocated for reform in North Korea, which he said was the reason for his exile. Some say another reason for his exile was when he got arrested trying to travel to Disneyland in Tokyo. Worst Disney trip ever. This caused the North Korean regime great embarrassment and led to them kicking him out of the country. Honestly, I can totally see this being the case. The North Koreans are a very spiteful people and don't like to think they've been embarrassed. I guess I should kind of rephrase that. When I say the North Koreans are a spiteful people, I mean the government, because the people are just trying to survive. I don't think they give a fuck that Kim Jong-un's brother tried to go to Disneyland and got arrested. But anyway, bro was traveling back to Macau and a couple of ladies approached him and wiped something on his face with a cloth. It's speculated that each woman had a component of VX, and when combined on Kim's face, it created the whole VX compound, killing him quickly and painfully. Obviously, the blame is falling on the North Korean government because this is definitely something they would do. Why they waited so long to do it, I don't know. Maybe Kim Jong-un got bored one day, and instead of ingesting large amounts of cheese and wine, he decided to off his brother in a James Bond movie-style assassination. I wish the poor dude could saw Japanese Disneyland. I bet it's rad. I think chemical weapons are retarded and unnecessarily destructive, as you can see from what we just talked about. A person has to truly be evil to want to use these substances. Why risk the severe unintended consequences of using these weapons, like them getting out of control and causing mass devastation, or even killing the people that deployed them? Just use good old-fashioned bullets and bombs like a man. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe because, well, you know.